English is spoken all around the world, but not only as a foreign language. In many countries other than the UK, English is an official language. Also, it is spoken by a quarter of the world's population today.
But how did English become one of the most spoken languages worldwide? Watch this video to find out.
First, let's look at a quite interesting map. It shows in which countries around the globe English is an official language, or the first language. As you can see, it's not only the UK, the USA and Australia that speak a lot of English, but also countries like South Africa, India, Pakistan, Nigeria, the Philippines, Uganda, and many more.
A lot of that has to do with the British Empire. In the late 1500s, the British started setting up colonies all over the world. Their first colonies were in what is today the USA and the Caribbean. They later bought New York from the Dutch and won Canada from the French in a war.
But those were only the beginnings of the British Empire. While the settlers in America fought for their independence, the British set up new colonies in Australia, New Zealand, and vast parts of Africa and Asia.
The British often set up their colonies out of economic interest, but also because they wanted more and more power.
And they succeeded in that. In 1922, almost a quarter of the Earth's land and almost a third of the Earth's population were part of the British Empire.
But what does that have to do with the English language? Let's take a look at the USA first. The British weren't the only people to colonise the USA. The Spanish, the Dutch, the French, and the Germans also had settlements there.
Of course, those languages were also spoken in what later became the USA. When all the colonies became the United States of America, they wanted to develop a national identity. Because English was spoken by the majority of people, they encouraged everyone to speak English. Some states even banned the teaching of foreign languages for years, but the USA still has no official language.
It's also important to remember that the Europeans weren't the first people to live in America. For thousands of years, indigenous people had already been living there. The Europeans took their land from them, fought them in wars, and forced them to speak English instead of their own languages. The settlers even forced indigenous children to learn English, attend church, and leave their traditions behind.
But what about other parts of the world? In Asia and Africa, not many British people moved to the colony, so it was a different situation than in the USA.
In these countries, the spread of the English language often had to do with administration and education. The British Empire gained more and more power in many of their colonies by exploiting other countries. Because they gained so much power, English was often established in those countries as an official language.
After World War II, American businesses were very successful. This made English even more important and more widely spoken around the globe.
Because English was introduced, sometimes even by force, to other cultures, different countries have their own versions of English, so there are different varieties of English around the world. You could maybe say that there are different Englishes.
Next to British and American English, there is also Canadian English, Indian English, Ugandan English, and many more. It is important not to view these as wrong. They might sound different to British English, use different words and even different grammar, but they are still correct in their own way.
There are many reasons why a global language is a good thing. It makes it easier to travel, to trade, to share knowledge about science. There have even been a few attempts at creating a new language that is very easy to learn so it can become a global language. The most famous example of that is Esperanto.
Today, English comes closest to a global language because so many people worldwide can speak or at least understand it. But English didn't become a language that is spoken all around the globe in the best way. It was forced on many people and cultures, and is still seen as a symbol of oppression for some people. So, this was a very brief history of how English was spread around the world. While it is useful that you can speak to so many people around the world, there are also negative sides of that development. Of course, there are a lot of other things to take into consideration.
What do you think? Is it a good or a bad thing that English is spoken all around the world? See you next time!